Well, I think, still trying to maintain the fastball profile, creating the ride with the fastball. There are times that he can lose his hand position a little bit and almost sink the ball. And that's fine when you want to, but when you're not trying to sink the ball, obviously you don't want to do that. So I think just trying to maintain some consistency, with that fastball.
Did you? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
What have you thought of the way that Karinchak has sort of settled in after that first outing, or had a little bit around pitch timer and all that?
Yeah, I think it's good. Mandy, it was a little bit of a surprise because, first of all, it was a surprise in spring training how well he handled the pitch clock. Matter of fact, I thought he handled it probably better than any of our relievers in Arizona. When the regular season starts, and certainly on opening day, 40,000 people in the stands, and once there was a violation, first one that the fans had seen, they kind of really got into it, which that's what fans do, and that was good for the Mariners side of things. But it's still, I think, a little bit of a work in progress in terms of just the timing. I think we saw again the other night prior to the first pitch. He stepped off and didn't get the pitch off in time. Bump up against zero a couple of times. I think as we continue to go forward, he's going to adjust better, and certainly even when he has. After this first outing, anyway, even when it's become a bit of an issue, he's been able to overcome and maintain his focus.
What type of challenges or stress in Triston and Cal right out of the gate the way you did? Is that really, created for your pitching?
Yeah, I mean, it is a challenge. I mean, no one can, sit here and say this not. At the same time, I look back. To last year where we, had a situation. I remember going to New York, as a matter of fact, and Cal was diagnosed with COVID, and, we had McCarty up and we had Tanner Tully up, and of course Curry came up with some better part of the season. So it's not anything you look forward to, but at the same time, it's not the first time, we've been in this situation. And, development never starts or never stops. Just because you get to the major leagues, it doesn't mean you're the finished product. And I think one thing we've done here is a good job of continuing to develop while we're in the major leagues. Now, there's some, hiccups, with that, because you have to learn, what works and what doesn't and what adjustments to make. But it's part of the game that every team at some point in time or another has to deal with, and we feel like we're equipped to deal with it.
Those lines froze. Thinking back to 2019, this forced to call up Civale and Willis, even though they didn't have a ton of experience in AAA. And I know it's different with everybody. So if you have injuries, is there a threshold you prefer that you have to start a pitcher beats in terms of AAA starts or experience before you throw them into the fire up here?
Yeah, I don't know if you can really put a number on it. When you go and look at last year, I think Curry came up here and he had 2, maybe 3 starts in AAA. Similar with Gaddis last year when he came up. I mean, ideally, they're going to have more AAA starts under their belt than 2 or 3. But I think too, one of the things is maybe more of a challenge this year than last. I think last year it was May when we had the little situation there going to New York. But being this early in the season, I mean, AAA has played a week, so no one, Peyton Battenfield's here starting today. He's got 1 start this year. Now he pitched in AAA the entire season last year, but guys are still getting their feet underneath them. And in his case, he's only pitched, away from Arizona once. So it's a little bit challenging this early.
Where did you guys learn about the time that you had with him in spring?
I think first, he's not afraid. I certainly hope we see that today. I mean, this is a club that, while they can be intimidating, you have to attack, because if you get in bad counts, they're going to make you pay. And I think we saw in spring training that, he is not afraid to throw the ball in the strike zone. I felt like his secondary stuff, we hadn't seen a lot of him prior to this spring, the major league staff. I felt like his secondary stuff probably a little bit better in terms of his spinning pitches, the curveball and slider, a little better than maybe we anticipated. We heard about the changeup. So, I think he's a competitor. That's the first and foremost thing that stands out.
We've asked everyone about the implementation of the pitch clock and the rules, just from your perspective. How do you think that is either helped or maybe you feel hasn't helped it?
At the outset of spring training, I was really stressed about it. I think as the games have progressed, we paid less attention to it. And I'm talking about the staff. Obviously, when the pitcher's on the mound, when the hitter's in the box, they have to obviously always be aware of where that clock is. I think we've kind of settled in with it. There are times, I get a little antsy with it, but I do believe if the pitchers can adapt, it's almost more difficult on the hitting side of the thing. I mean, again, I look at the Yankees and, for all the years, and you can go way back. I mean, they were never in a big hurry to get in the box. They're always, trying to intimidate you somewhat. They lose that ability now. And at the same time, I think, a lot of hitters, very cerebral, and they're able to kind of, put the at bat together and the sequences and maybe, and they don't have quite the time maybe to think about, okay, what's he going to throw next? So, and, I have to say, it's nice, to when you beat the Yankees 3-2 and it's 8:40, you get to go home and enjoy it for an extra hour. And, when you're on the other end of it, it gets over with in a hurry and you can go home and forget it.
You had mentioned the word development. I think there's this concept that it's either you're winning or you're developing. I know you guys take a different approach that part of developing players is teaching them how to succeed in big moments and to win. But what is, as a staff, what is your appetite for being patient with a guy that maybe isn't at his best, if you want to keep putting him in spots to try to work through that?
Well, I mean, you have to be patient, and you have to embrace that situation, because very seldom do you see anyone step in the major league stage and just hit the ground running and not have to struggle. So I think we don't overreact. I think that's really important, to not overreact when things don't go extremely well, because you do realize that these guys are learning. They're facing hitters and the caliber of hitters that they've never faced before in their lives, and they're learning what works and what doesn't. And I can tell you confidently, I stand out of the bullpen, and I'll say Hunter Gaddis, and I watch his bullpens and I see his stuff, and it is major league. It is really good stuff. However, he has to still learn and get confident and comfortable with executing that stuff and trusting that stuff in the moment when the game's going on. And sometimes that takes time. So, it's tough because we show up to win every day, but at the same time, you just have to respect the process.
Carlos, it feels like there's been a lot of wild pitches so far. Do you think that's just product of new catchers learning new pitchers, and early in the season maybe it's not gripping things the way you would in June or July?
Yeah, I do. I think it's our catchers, learning. So we spend the ball a lot. I think that's no secret. It's not, necessarily philosophy. It's our guys do it well. And so, our catchers to this point may not be accustomed to that much spin. Therefore, they haven't had to block as often as maybe they're going to be forced to block this year. So I think that'll clean up. I do, as our guys learn each other.
No, exactly, Zach was talking a lot this spring about trying to be more positive on the mound, knowing for the last few years when he's gotten in his own head a little bit and gotten in his own way.
Mhm.
I know it's been a short span of what we've seen so far, but have you seen anything different with him and the way that he's sort of handled himself in that way?
Well, I did the last start. I can't remember second, third inning. We had a misplay at shortstop and, he was able to reset himself and I believe got a double play ball to get out of that inning. So, we did see it kind of surface in Oakland after the ball fell in shallow center field. And it's something that, we've continued to talk with him about, and he's very aware that he does get in his own way. He does start to think somewhat negatively, and we know it's hard to not go there, but you really have to be strong. And, it's such a cliche, but you just have to control what you can control. And I thought he did a really good job of that on Sunday.
He just seems to light up every time we mention Tim Herron, bring him up. Just what about Herron excites you and gets you think positively about what he's got potentially?
Yeah, honestly, the stuff. I mean, we saw it last spring. He came over and backed up in a game. We had an outing that really wasn't very good, but at the same time, the flight of the ball and what we saw coming out of the hand was really exciting. And I think some conversations with him about that, kind of opened his eyes to maybe how good he could be, and that being a major league pitcher and a good major league pitcher was certainly a possibility for him. And hey, he's still learning, but to this point, he's learning in the right direction.
One about Clase, obviously had an incredible year last year. He's off to a good start, but when you think about his habits, what makes him that effective and that ready to perform?
Well, he's really diligent in paying attention to his delivery. He's very consistent in his work every day in terms of his throwing programs and getting himself ready to pitch. And hey, he's extremely confident. I mean, if how could you not be with the stuff he has? But I think he also knows that if he's not ready and if he's not prepared, this is a difficult game, and someone will get the best of him, and he doesn't take it for granted.
Team attacks. I know you're talking about the upper part of the zone. That's the goal.
Yeah, you know what? It's a goal. We talked about it last year. We've talked a little bit about it this year. I think we haven't really gone there yet. It's just something that maybe is in the plans for down the road. He hasn't changed his plan of attack at all to this point. Again, try to get his feet on the ground and get the season off and running. All right. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.